Welcome back to Restless, where zany young adults gather to seek the face of Christ in today's mixed-up world. Lauren's shaking her head because she doesn't like the fact that I said that we were zany.
No, I asked him if we could change the description of the show, and he told me he, uses the word zany with pride.
I'm proud of it, zany.
Yeah, I don't know if it fits the rest of us, but...
Maybe not. She wants to be normal. I think normal is a setting on a washing machine. But,
Ouch.
so I am Father Joseph along with Lauren, and we have a new co-host with us. His name is Henry.
Hello, everybody. Yes, thank you so much, Father Joseph, for having me on once again. And yeah, very excited. This is my first time being on the Restless podcast.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah, I'll give a brief introduction of myself here. My name is Henry Henches. I am 23 years old, and I have lived in Stamford for a little bit over a year now. I moved here in August of 2021. I graduated from the University of Notre Dame in May of 2021 with a degree in mechanical engineering, but I'm originally from Missouri. So I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. I have 2 younger sisters and a younger brother, and I grew up on a beef cattle farm in mid-Missouri in the Ozarks.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a beautiful way to grow up. Very thankful for so many of the experiences that I had growing up there, and so many of the lessons I learned from those experiences, from the things that my parents and my family taught me. So I think given my background, I think I will hopefully have some good insight to share about animals and care for creation.
Which is our topic for today, talking about pets and nature. But first of all, how are you adjusting to city life here in Stamford?
There's things I definitely do enjoy about it. I enjoy being able to be close to downtown, be close to bars and restaurants, and have a lot of people my age around. But there are parts of it that are difficult for me too. Like I really love the outdoors, and I love having access to being outdoors easily. And so that's been something that's kind of hard for me. Like I often will spend most of my time outdoors over the weekends. I'll go camping or hiking or
nice,
or just other adventures just to try to get my outdoor time.
Well, you told me that today you took the day off from work to go leaf peeping.
Yeah,
which is a great Connecticut typical thing to do.
Yes, it was beautiful.
Go up to upstate Connecticut. Have you ever been up to Kent Falls?
No, I haven't.
You got to go up there. You've never been to Kent Falls?
No, I don't really leave Fairfield County.
Oh my God.
Oh, it's so beautiful up there.
Litchfield County is gorgeous.
That's my favorite part of Connecticut. I really like Litchfield County.
Yeah, it's the upper northwest county of Connecticut. And when they split the dioceses back in 1953, we were hoping to get Litchfield County along with Fairfield County in the Diocese of Bridgeport. But the Pope said no.
Oh, really? Because so is the Diocese of Bridgeport just Fairfield County?
It is just Fairfield County, just that one southwest little corner. It's a very densely populated county, though.
Right.
I can't even.
I think it's 600,000 people.
Is that
650 maybe?
But it's got to be at least 50% Catholic, if not more.
Yeah,
I think
very
400,000 Catholics around there.
400,000.
Yes.
That's actually really big.
Mm-hmm.
Considering there's only 400,000 people in the entire state of Wyoming, maybe less.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's get into that topic of pets and nature. Since it is October, when we're recording this, and kind of peak of nature season. Did you guys have pets growing up? I mean, you lived on a cattle farm, so I don't know if you consider those your pets.
Yeah, we always had a lot of animals around growing up. I think we had on average somewhere between 80 and 100 cattle the whole time I was growing up. So lots of cows. We always had pigs too. We always had chickens. Both the hens for laying eggs, and also we would raise different batches of chickens for harvesting for meat. So we'd raise meat chickens.
So your cattle, were they steer or were they milk cows?
We did it. We raised them for beef. We never raised any dairy cows.
Okay.
So yeah, we would raise calves every year, and then we would feed them out and then sell them at market, and then we would keep a few and harvest those ourselves, and our family would eat those.
Nice.
So yeah, lots of great food growing up too.
Do you have a pet now that you're in Stamford?
I don't know. That's one thing I'd really like to have but unfortunately in my living situation now, my landlord does not allow pets, and I'd love to have a cat, but one of my roommates is allergic to cats. So
also too bad.
I know it's a double whammy, but definitely at some point in the future, I'd love to have some pets. But yeah, we always had probably on average 3 or 4 dogs growing up too. And right now in our barn, my parents in their barn, they have like 17 cats, I think.
Oh man.
They're because
But they're functional, I'm sure.
they live in the barn
mouse
and they
catchers.
catch mice, and it's kind of funny because our family has a reputation of being an animal loving family. So people from the area would just leave stray cats on our farm because they knew that we would take care of them. And then my dad, of course, took them into the barn and gave them a place to sleep and would feed them daily. And then they just reproduce exponentially.
Yeah, they do, I'm sure.
So, yeah. So lots of cats around too.
That's awesome.
Well, I have to ask, what is it like to eat beef from a cow that you knew?
That's a good question. What I always tell people is that it makes you appreciate more the nourishment that you put into your body because you actually see the input that goes into breeding and taking care of the cow as it gives birth, and then raising that calf from birth. Providing for all of its material needs, taking care of it when it's sick, and then eventually you get to the point where you do take that life that you have been nurturing, and you take that life and you use it to sustain your own life and to sustain the life of your family. So it is kind of a sobering experience to be involved in this being's life and then to take it at the same time. It makes you feel very responsible for the life with which you've been entrusted, and it makes you feel connected to the entire process too.
Yeah. So what about you, Lauren? Did you have pets?
We had one cat growing up that we got when I was 8, only because my mom's coworker had a litter of kittens at home, and they all went like right away. And then she said to my mom, if my cat gets pregnant again, you'll get first pick. And then that happened. So the next litter came and she went around, Chris Doyle gets first pick. So my mom was like, well, first pick, because otherwise I don't think my parents would have gotten us a pet. And there was like one photo and some of the cats are like scratching, up in the air and whatever, the scratching post thing. And then there was this little one on the side and she picked that. And the lady said, oh, that's the runt of the litter. My mom said, perfect. So we had Misty. She was a 7-pound cat. That was my only pet. I was obsessed with her. My AOL Messenger, anyone that did that AIM screen name was Misty Mahler 23.
Oh my gosh, AIM. That's a blast from the late 90s, early 2000s.
I was obsessed. I would pick her up constantly, put her around my neck, put her in things. She was an indoor-outdoor cat, so she was always around us. I don't know. She was a great childhood pet, also ferocious when she needed to be at the vet.
Yeah.
So we were proud of her.
Well, that's great that you had a relationship with a cat, because a lot of cats are not really social.
Yeah, no, she was a good cat for sure. And she lived to be 19. And
Wow.
she overlapped with our family's dog, Shaggy. He's my baby.
Yes, I've seen Lauren walk Shaggy.
And maybe
Shaggy's a
carry
big
him. I also carry him around. Unlike other dogs or cats, he doesn't try to get down when I pick him up. And he actually looks for me to pick him up when I go home.
Oh, nice.
My family would probably deny, but I'm telling you, he looks at me like, are you going to pick me up? And then I do. So he's my baby.
That's awesome.
When we got him, Misty was more, in the basement or whatever, but she would still come around, and then she died, a few years after getting Shaggy. So that's my family pet. I love animals. I like cats and dogs. I mean, people always ask. Dogs are so fun because they greet you and they're so lovable, but I did really like my cat at the same time, and they're so easy. We would just leave her at home with food for a weekend.
Yeah.
maybe a
That's
week.
true. You don't maybe a week. Yeah.
They can just be self-sufficient, so that's very easy.
That's a plus. Yeah.
And it's much less work. I mean, I couldn't get a pet now either, Henry, because of my work schedule and everything. I couldn't take care of it. So
Yeah. Growing up, I did not live on a farm, but it was almost 3 acres, and my dad wanted to make it into a farm. So at one point we had a goat. We had about up to 50 chickens at one time. We had rabbits. We started out with 2. We thought they were both female, and then we had 17
there you go.
very quickly. And that was interesting watching that process take place. In part because I didn't realize that rabbits, I guess I don't know if they're nutritionally deficient, but rabbit moms will eat their children.
No way.
Yeah, it was really
I did
disgusting.
not know that.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, so some of them didn't make it until they got, I guess, a little stronger, and then they started having litters of 5 or 6. And the little bunnies are the cutest things in the world.
Yeah, they are.
And we did have a dog too, a dog named Jessie. It was a big old Jack Russell mix, which is a great fun little small thing. And also the runt of the litter.
Would you ever get a pet now?
No, that's a hard no.
Really? Why
You
is
don't
that?
want one, or it's not practical for your life?
I don't want one
Why is that, Father Joseph?
because in part because I want to have that freedom to be able to do what the ministry calls me to. And, my life is completely full with wonderful people. I don't have any need for more companionship. When I go home, I just want to be by myself. I don't even want a dog around to
Yeah.
hang out with. And
Well, your days are very full.
they're very full. Yeah. And they're full with people. Like I just want like solitude sometimes.
And you would never be someone who would baby your pet, I would imagine.
No,
What
they
you're
would-
telling me, which is kind of what the culture is today.
Yeah, very much
Pets
so.
are like children.
Yes, definitely.
I always cringe when I see that bumper sticker. My children have 4 paws.
Oh, me
Like,
too.
if that's the case, you need to take them to the doctor.
Yeah,
If your children have 4, like get that looked at.
I know. That's one of my pet peeves. No pun intended.
Yeah. No, it's just strange, right? It's like we're called to be mothers and fathers, of course, but there's a reluctancy now, I think, in a lot of cases to have actual children, like just these long, whether it's cohabitating relationships or even marriages, where people think that children are a burden. Or I even heard someone tell me, like, I'm not so vain that I need to have my own kid. And I'm like,
That's vanity.
that's not what that is. That's giving of yourself and sacrifice and love of another. You know what I mean?
It kind of seems like the opposite of vanity to me.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
like the vanity of like, I need to have a kid. Like I need to reproduce, because I'm so great.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that's what society is kind of
I don't think
warped.
I don't think that's going through any parent's mind. Like, I
But
need to
once
make
the
an image
kid
of
is
me.
there, well, this is, I think the culture is saying, don't have kids.
Right.
Right. That's not going to lead you to happiness.
Yeah.
But what we end up seeing is people have pets who they treat like children.
Yes, we do. Definitely.
Well, my brother's in that boat. He's been married over 10 years now. I guess 11 or 12 years, and he and his wife have chosen not to have kids.
Really?
But maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they got a dog.
Okay.
This big black. I don't. It's not a lab. It's some other type of dog. And we would. My parents would invite my brother over for dinner. And he's like, "Well, I have to bring you Inu." I'm like, no, you don't. You don't have to bring Inu. Well, yeah, we do. He's part of the family.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? No, he's not part of your family.
Yeah.
But that was the view. It's this surrogate kid.
Right. Yeah.
It takes a lot less effort.
Yeah, I think most people, they do have some sort of hole. I don't know, hole is the right word. Some kind of longing in their lives to care for something else or to lay down their life for something else. And I do think for a lot of people, especially those who are called to marriage, and those who end up being open to wife and being blessed with children, that fills that hole in their life. They feel like they're called. They want to lay down their lives for something else, and that then they're given the chance to do that for their kids, because when their kids are born, they're completely helpless and they're completely responsible for the well-being of their children. But I think for a lot of people, it's like they still have that longing because that's part of human nature, but they don't have the appreciation for the responsibility that would be involved in bringing life into the world and looking after it. So it's almost like they take a shortcut, or they adopt a pet into their life to try to fill that hole or fill that void. And for some people, maybe they do. I don't know. I can't really speak from experience because I don't have any of my own children, nor do I have my own pets. But just my perception is people do find a lot of fulfillment in those relationships with their pets. And I've also seen firsthand in family members and people in my life that, for instance, when their pet dies, say they have a dog that they're really close to, and that dog lasts 10 or 15 years, and then inevitably that dog is going to die because dogs just don't live as long as humans do on average. It's a very devastating thing in their life, and it takes them maybe a couple years to recover from that. And I always just think to myself, let's say you knew you were going to have a kid, or let's say you had a kid knowing that kid was only going to make it 10 or 15 years. Would you still do that? And I think hopefully a lot of people still would, but I don't think it's natural that people have to go through the loss of their child. If you talk to anybody who's ever gone through that, they'll say it's like one of the most difficult things you can possibly go through in the human experience is to experience the death of your own child. So if your child psychologically is a pet, it's like you're signing up for that, knowing ahead of time that that's probably going to happen. It just seems like you're setting yourself up for this horribly difficult journey.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people would still say it's worth it for the companionship and the fulfillment that they get from having that in their life. But I just think it's something to be aware of.
But your relationship with animals, having grown up on a farm, probably is very different than most people's. So like even the dogs that you had, and certainly the cats that lived outdoors, that you didn't get emotionally terribly attached to the cats, right?
Right. Well, we did, but
it
was different. Like I know for my parents, like for instance, especially my dad. My dad really has a soft spot for dogs. He's always had a couple of dogs that he's been really close to. But that's not anywhere near the same level of intimacy that he shares with his kids, because he actually does have. He has 4 of his own kids, and his life is ordered. I think, in my opinion, it's well ordered so that his kids do take that place of, they are the apple of his eye. They keep things in perspective, and they and his wife are the things that are most important to him. And so it's not like he has this relationship with his dogs or with his cats that's disordered to where he's doting upon them as if they were his kids, because he does have his own kids.
Yeah. Yeah, that's certainly true. I mean, growing up on the farm, you learn, not our farm, it was just that kind of little backyard farm, but you learn not to get too close to animals because they're meant to serve us.
Right.
And, I asked my mom, what's for dinner tonight? Oh, Roy, the chicken. You're like, oh, okay. I think it got to the point where we started naming our chicken fried and baked and sauteed.
Yeah.
What's for dinner? Baked chicken. It got bad. But now, nevertheless, at the same time, pets really do reveal to us, an aspect of God's love and God's providence. And so, like, what have you seen from your own experience with your animals that kind of reveals God to you?
That's a good question. I'd say, especially I think a lot of people feel this with dogs, and I would say I felt this too. I mean, dogs just have this purity of their essence. Like they want nothing more than to be with and to please their master. And I think a lot of people don't have that kind of relationship with another person in their life. So I wonder if that's why sometimes people choose pets over kids. It's just a simpler relationship. Yeah, there's no complications of human. The chance that your dog's going to betray you and never speak to you again. That just doesn't happen. Right, because most dogs are very, very loyal and very focused on their master. Yeah, yeah, which does show us a lot about God's faithfulness. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think. I don't know. Pets are such a great gift. They give so much joy, play, even just for kids growing up, I imagine most children want a pet, right? Like my brother and I did. And we had one Christmas where we were like really, hoping to get a dog. And my dad kind of built it up as if we were going to get a pet. And that Christmas came and went. That was before Misty. And we're like, what about the dog? And my dad's like, Tamagotchi.
Oh, another 90s reference.
Yeah. I was a kid in the 90s. So we were like, really? So there was no pet, but at that time. And then, like I said, Misty kind of fell into our laps right after that because of the circumstances. But they weren't going to get us a pet. But so many children long for it. And then it's, like an addition to your family, a sense of responsibility. I have another pet story, actually. When I was 9, her food and everything was in the basement, and I was asked to go feed her, and it was like late, I don't know, maybe 8 or something. So I was tired. So I went down the steps and I kind of sat down and I opened up her wet food can, the lid. I fed her. I kind of leaned forward. I fed her. I left. I walked to the next room and I felt a tingling down my leg, and I had cut my leg open with the lid of the cat food can.
Ooh. Ouch.
So sorry for anyone who's squeamish, but I was bleeding. Called for my dad. He runs down the steps. He has to run back up, get paper towels and stuff like that. He does this whole big wrap bandage thing. I ended up getting only 9 stitches.
9 stitches?
It wasn't enough because it continued to bleed for like the next 2 days, and I couldn't even go to school. Like I couldn't move too much because it was bleeding through the bandages.
Gosh. Holy cow, you must have cut an artery or something down there.
Yeah, no, it's like a large scar. It is very prominent. People point it out to me all the time. What is that? I'm like, oh, that's
shark
from
attack. Gotta make a good story.
Cat food can. And they're always like, what? Yeah, I don't know.
Things are vicious.
I kind of got on a tangent story there, but it is like that sense of responsibility, right? Of taking care of something else.
That's true. You can grow in virtue that way.
Exactly. You have to walk it. You have to feed it. You have to clean up its poop,
Yeah. I think one of the things that pets have taught me is that there's a way in which the world works, and just kind of the idea of natural law. Like my first pet was a caterpillar. I had this thing about caterpillars. I loved them when I was 5 years old. And so I had this green caterpillar, and I'm not even, well, I'm so embarrassed by the name. I called it Lovey.
That's so
Lovey the
cute.
caterpillar.
That's very
But I was 5 years old, and I had it in a little cage and everything. And I remember thinking, oh, this poor thing, it's eating all this grass and leaves, but it's not drinking any water. It must be really so thirsty. So I took it out and I stuck it in a bucket of water. And I waited like 5 minutes, and I took it out and it was dead. And I remember like bawling my eyes out because I love that little thing. But it taught me an important lesson. Like there's a way in which things work.
right.
And you have to when you see nature, you kind of have to bow to nature and recognize like, I'm not the master of nature.
Yeah, that's definitely.
God has set this order in creation. And it's cool too. My sister used to hatch eggs in an incubator. And it's just awesome watching the nature take its course and see like how God miraculously, brings forth these creatures out of these round objects. It's like, wow, this is amazing. And I'm sure when you probably saw a calf being born,
Oh yeah.
that must be incredible.
Yeah, it was a very cool experience. It was always so exciting to go out and ride through the pastures during calving season, and during the peak of calving season, sometimes there'd be 4 or 5 new calves.
Oh my gosh.
And
So you didn't have to like help, like they do the birthing on their own. You don't
Usually they would be able to give birth on their own, but I'd say probably 1 in every 20 times, so probably like 5% of the time, you would have to assist with the birth, and that was always a very harrowing experience because we would usually have to run the cow as she was giving birth into the barn, and then we would have to put her in the head gate and assist, help her pull the calf out.
Ooh.
And sometimes it was successful. Sometimes she just needed a little bit of help. Sometimes it was complicated and we would lose the calf, or we'd lose the cow, or we'd lose both, or one or the other.
Oh.
So it was very stressful. I mean, it's like obviously very painful for the calf as she's trying to give, for the cow as she's trying to give birth. So just another great example of how delicate and powerful the process of bringing life into the world is.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes you realize the fragility of life in a very real way.
Yeah. And another point you were getting at too is just the natural order of things. I think that's something I feel like I have a very deep appreciation for, having grown up on the farm as well. Because what's the biggest thing that determines how successful a farmer is going to be? It's the weather, and the weather is completely out of control of people. I mean, if you can do your best, you can work hard, you can keep up with the latest technology and innovate as much as you can, but ultimately there's nothing you can do to control the weather.
You can't make it rain.
No, you cannot make it rain.
No.
You can build an irrigation system to make the best use of the water you have, but you cannot make it rain. So that's just it's a lesson that farmers learn over and over again. Like I talk to my dad on the phone sometimes, and he's like, man, we haven't gotten rain in like 2 months, and we just really need some rain. And it would really make my day if we could get some rain. It's just, he's so deeply affected by the weather in a way that most people who aren't dependent upon the land are not really dependent upon the weather.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just makes me appreciate the powerful forces of nature that are there for us to enjoy, and there for us to be stewards of, but not there for us to completely control.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be humble in the sight of nature.
Yeah.
That's the truth. That's, I was a Boy Scout as well. And that was something you learned really quickly, is to be totally humble in the face of nature. Like if you go into camping and you're prepared for anything, you're not boasting like, I got this, I don't need to wear extra long johns or whatever, you're going to get out okay. It's when you think that you don't need all that extra gear, or you think you can master this, you kind of get injured or sick or something like that.
Yeah.
So speaking of nature on the whole, I know that our world is very tending towards green politics and green ideology, kind of this idea of like climate change being a big issue. What do you guys think about climate change? Is that a thing?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's clear that that the Earth definitely does go through very long cycles of warming and cooling. And I think the last ice age ended about 10,000 years ago. So I think the Earth has been gradually warming since then. And it also makes sense to me that, I mean, the Earth's population has grown so exponentially in the last couple hundred years. And we've started burning carbon that we've pulled out of the ground at such a huge rate, really all in the last 2 or 300 years or so. Like, it makes sense to me that would have some kind of effect on the Earth's climate. But I don't think we can really definitively say that it's the only driver of climate change. And I think there's a lot of hubris, just a lot of arrogance in the climate change dialogue that we have in our mainstream culture today, to where people will definitively claim that, like, if we don't stop burning coal or stop burning petroleum by 2030, then Miami's going to go underwater, or 100 million people are going to be flooded out. And if you look back, people have been making claims like that since like the 1970s.
The world was going to end by 2020.
Yeah, exactly. People have said that by the year 2010, Miami's no longer going to be above water. And so I think
there is a lot of extreme ideology and rhetoric.
There's a lot, and I think a lot of it is people are easier to control when they're afraid of things. And so there are people and there are systems in place that are trying to control the decisions that people make. And one of the most effective ways to garner that control and power and influence is to make people scared.
Yeah.
And make people afraid. So,
well, that was a big impact even in my own life, because I went to public school for the first 3 years of my schooling. And I remember coming home I don't remember this. My mom tells me that I came home one day and said, "Mom, my teacher said you can't have any more kids because the world is overpopulated." And that was when I left public school, went to Catholic school the very next year.
Just the audacity of, a public school trying to step in between a child and their parent and trying to...
that was pushed so hard, this overpopulation myth back in the mid-90s, that, the world is going to explode. And, here we are 25 years later, and we're actually still hanging in there.
Yeah.
Although, interestingly enough, we are seeing a demographic decline now.
Oh, yeah. And,
especially in the Western world.
And something that's also interesting is, I think, yes, there is evidence to support that the Earth has gotten slightly warmer. But at the same time, I think if you look at the total number of deaths caused by natural disasters, when you adjust it for population growth, it's down like 90 or 95% over the last 100 years. And the reason for that is because we developed so much better infrastructure for flooding, for transportation, and we're so much better at measuring and predicting the weather. So like when a hurricane comes to hit Florida, we know 3 days in advance, and we're competent enough to be able to evacuate all the people that are going to be in the way.
Right.
And that's why you see, like, for instance, with the tsunami that happened in Thailand in 2004, I think, 2003.
Yeah.
So many people died. So many more people died in that instance than probably would have died had that happened in a developed country like the United States. Is because they just didn't have the infrastructure in place to be able to respond in a timely manner. So many more people died than would have really needed to. But I just think it's important to be humanistic in the approach that we take. We shouldn't be prideful and think that we can do anything without affecting the climate of the Earth. But we also shouldn't sacrifice the well-being of our human race just because we think we are going to lead to destruction if we don't. I think we have to find that balance.
Yeah, definitely. Lauren, any thoughts?
Yeah, my thought is don't trust what politicians say. Because I think Henry's spot on and using fear, and it's about control and passing initiatives that certain people want passed, right? They're making a claim that we need to do this for the sake of our country and the world, but I think people are definitely benefiting from these initiatives that they're putting in place, and they're hurting the nation in terms of going into more debt, right? And people losing jobs and things like that. Or out in California, they've made a claim about electric vehicles,
right.
But their own electrical grid could not support the power to use these vehicles. It makes no sense. They already have a ton of problems out in California. And then recently, too, with the last hurricane, I believe it was reported that hurricanes are intensifying.
Well, yeah. So
when that is not the case at all.
Yeah.
So false claims that, are spreading fear, like you're saying.
Right. Well, so the research I've seen actually suggests that on like the average intensity of a hurricane has increased by about 5%. But the only reason that's the case is because the overall frequency of hurricanes has decreased by about 25%. And so,
I think we only had one really significant one this year.
Yeah.
It's Hurricane Ian.
Right. And so because there are fewer hurricanes, there tend to be fewer hurricanes from the less intense side of the spectrum. So it shifts the average intensity upwards, even though the overall frequency of hurricanes is decreasing.
Huh. That's interesting. Never knew that. Wow. So real quick, just at the very end, what can we as young adults do then to care for the earth in a healthy way? Because I do think we have that responsibility. And, Pope Francis recently, not that recently, I guess, put out his encyclical Laudato Si on the environment, which, I mean, it is a piece of Catholic social teaching that we should care for the environment. So what can young adults do to help that, to make a difference?
I think that's hard. I'm generally very disappointed in how humanity is treating the earth, especially when you see like Pope Francis claims and the documentaries that show you the giant landfills of all this discarded technology and pollution that's everywhere. And I feel helpless in that. And, Father Suarez is telling me that our country doesn't recycle anymore. I don't know if this is the claim or not. We're still sorting, but we're not actually doing anything.
I've heard that. Yeah.
So-
I've heard that too. I think,
Most recycling is just
I've heard that most of
Trashed.
our recycling gets sent to China and to.
But I don't think we send it to China anymore.
Yeah, I think they stopped taking it sometime in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So I don't know what we can do. It's disheartening to me.
Well, I think that's one of the biggest things is that we live in a very disposable culture.
Right.
So why am I buying water bottles when we have perfectly good water and I can fill up a pitcher?
Yeah,
Right.
so
You
true.
know,
My phone's from 2016, so
Yeah.
I got you beat. Mine's 2012.
you won't go to a smartphone, but
I will not go to smartphone.
Wow.
20
That's
20
this is only my
a bold
second
statement from you, Joseph.
smartphone.
Not
Never,
having a smartphone.
never get a smartphone. No,
Wow.
that's really that's 2016.
I'm doing
though.
good
It's pretty-
for most
that's
people.
Significant.
Yeah.
That is. Yeah, still running 3G
No, I think I don't know. I don't know what it is.
because my phone's shutting down in December because it. Well,
Oh, really?
won't
So you're gonna have to
support
get a
3G.
different phone?
Got to get different flip phone.
You said yours is from 2012.
Yeah,
So basically 10 years. They're
10
phasing it
years,
out.
like an antique,
Huh.
almost officially.
Yeah.
Well, that's one way we're helping the environment.
That's true.
Well, yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's tough, especially living in an urban environment where you and I live in Stamford, Lauren, and you live in Monroe, so you're probably a little closer to nature in where you live, Father Joseph. But,
Definitely, yeah.
But like Lauren and I are in Stamford, and we live in apartments, and so kind of like I was getting at earlier, that's one thing I really miss about where I grew up is I just don't feel as closely linked to nature anymore. So I love to just go, maybe like 1 or 2 weekends a month. I love to just go on a hike somewhere in a rural area and get some sunshine and take in the beauty of nature. And in addition to that, I think one of the biggest ways we can be conscientious of the environment is through the things that we purchase. Like it takes so much energy and material input to buy a new car. And this is not to say that it's necessarily immoral to buy a new car, but if we don't really need one, we can save a ton of energy and material inputs by buying a used car. Or just not upgrading our phone every year like a lot of people do. Or or even just like I really think we should be careful of the foods that we eat because there's so many not nutritious processed foods out there that cause people a lot of sickness. And I think it's better for the environment and better for ourselves if we try to source our foods more locally or eat more.
Yeah. And just not waste food.
Definitely.
A
not
third
waste
of food is
too.
wasted in America. That's terrible.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Crazy. I know.
Wow.
Yeah. But there's lots of practical ways in which we as young adults can
Yeah.
really try to help the environment, which is a very Catholic principle.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not really sure about recycling. I know I've heard my worry with recycling is that it gets in our head that, I can just buy all this packaging because I can recycle it and I'll feel fine. Like it's a net zero thing if I just buy all this disposable stuff. And then if it's not actually recycled or if it takes so much energy to recycle it that it's not really worthwhile to do so, then maybe people end up buying more disposable stuff than they would otherwise. And it's a net detriment to the environment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think in general, just try to not buy disposable stuff. Try to buy quality stuff that will last you a long time. Try to minimize the packaging that you use.
Yep.
Just be conscious of things like that.
And I think the world is kind of waking up a little bit to that reality.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much. We've run out of time, but thanks for joining us on this episode of Restless. The challenge is to go and make a difference in your own neighborhood. Maybe it's take a walk in nature. Maybe it's to recycle or to use again rather than throw away things that we could reuse. But the truth is that being a true Catholic means taking care of this great gift that God has given us while also not glorifying it above the needs of humanity.
Yep.
So you can find us on Veritas Catholic Network, 103.9 FM and 1350 AM, and wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in next time.